Hi there, this is Drew Watley from the Whatcom Museum, joining you again to kind of work on our Dorodangos. So if you followed along with our video from the other day, you've got a mud ball that's been soaking, and you can see here's mine. And this actually been sitting for 3 or 4 days now, and you can see it still has a lot of moisture in it. It's still somewhat malleable, and this is going to be the core of our Dorodango. So the next thing we have to do is we have to add, the best analogy is kind of like the earth, and there's a core, there's a mantle, and there's a crust. And so now we're going to add the mantle, which is kind of the first clay layer that's going to kind of give it some shape. This isn't the layer that's going to be all shiny, but rather it's going to be the one kind of underlying that. And what we're going to do is we're taking our dirt from the other day, which has been filtered somewhat. It's still got a little bit of stuff in it, but it's been fairly well filtered. And all we're going to do is take handfuls of it and sprinkle it on top. And we're going to sprinkle it around and kind of spread it. We just keep doing that, like that. And what this is doing is the dirt is still somewhat tacky in the center, but what it's going to tack to is it's going to tack to the more clay bits in our dirt, and that's why it's going to form a core. That's why it's going to form a mantle around the core. So you can see I'm doing this, and if you're looking very closely, you can see I'm giving off quite a bit of dust. So sometimes it's nice to do this outside or in a place where you don't mind a little bit of dust. And so as we do that, we're adding layers, and what we're going to do is we're going to add these layers until we see the first sign of a crack in our Dorodango. Because that just shows that the moisture is being sucked up. So if you look very closely, do you see that crack layer right there? That's a sign that I should let this sit for another hour or two before coming back and adding another layer. So this is a process that's going to take a few hours to a few days. So you let it sit for 20, 30 minutes. Oh yeah, you can see the cracks are forming. So we want to let this sit for 20 or 30 minutes and let it kind of soak itself back together. And then we're going to add another layer. And we're going to keep repeating that over and over and over again. I'll have you join me again once I've done a few more layers and I have it in a little bit more of a different shape. Thanks so much. Okay, so we're here again. We're adding some more layers to our Dorodango. As you can see, if you look closely, you see my Dorodango, it's still, you can see the darkness in it. It still has a little bit of moisture in it, and it's sticking to my hands just a little bit. But because it's getting towards because there's not a whole ton of moisture left in it, I'm going to do one more layer of drizzle, like we saw earlier. Try to add to that mantle a little bit. So I'm doing one, I'm drizzling right here. And then the next step we're going to do after this, we're actually going to pat very fine dust onto it. So in between this update and my next update, what I'm going to be doing is going through this dirt that I have here. You can see I've still got some tiny rocks and stuff in there. So I'm actually going to go through and very carefully filter all of this dirt to make one fine, consistent grade so that I can pat the dust on there. So if you're following along at home, what I'd recommend is now is the time to eliminate even the little things that are in the dirt, whereas before they would just kind of shake off. So that's one of the things I'm going to be doing, and when I return, you're going to see I have a much finer layer of dust. But I'm putting another layer or two on here, and then I'm going to let it sit for another day as I sort that dust. Now I want to show you the third step in making our Dorodango. So what we've been doing prior is taking handfuls of dirt and kind of drizzling them on them and then shaping them into a ball. Now, while you still have just a little bit of wetness, a little bit of moisture in the ball, what we're going to want to do is add our fine layer of dirt. This is kind of the crust for the earth that you can kind of imagine your Dorodango as. So if you look at the dirt I've got here, you can see I've got this a lot more finely screened than what we'd been working with previously. I've really gone through with our screens and really got out most of the junk. There's still just a touch of it. But for the most part, you can see this is a lot of really fine dirt. Because what we're going to want to do is add the finest dirt we can and keep adding that to create that crust layer. Kind of one of the ways I've picked up of doing this is when you have your finely layered dirt, you kind of give it a shake and then kind of shake it down. The most finely layered stuff is what stays in the bottom of your pan here. So what we can do is take our Dorodango, take our hand, wipe our hand with clean. You see how I've got, that's really fine dirt right there. And then we just want to layer it onto the Dorodango like that. And you can even see my prints on the Dorodango. So we get that off our hand there, and kind of scoop up a little bit more and do it again. And we're gonna add a couple layers of this. And you're gonna wanna do it over time. Let it, after you've added, 5 or 6 layers, let it rest for a little while. So you look at all that, and then you go like that. And we add it to our ball. And as we add over time, you do this, it really just depends on kind of the dirt you're working with and your kind of feel for it. But eventually you'll kind of feel it get a little bit oily. And when you feel it get oily, that's kind of a sign that you've hit where you need to go. And that's when we'll check in for part 4 of making our Dorodango, which is the polishing. Again, I want to show we're still layering a fine layer of dust on the top to create kind of the crust of the Dorodango. I'm going to do one more layer today, and then we'll work on polishing tomorrow. But even with the few layers I've done, you can kind of see where it's starting to be finished up. If you look very closely at the Dorodango I have here, do you kind of see how we've got a little bit of a darker texture like here and like here and here? So that's a sign that we're starting to get close to where we can polish the Dorodango. The thing I also want to bring up, as it happened to me in this Dorodango, is that these are mud balls. They're earth. They kind of take on a life of their own, and sometimes you run into problems. And none of them are ever perfect. So even the Dorodango I've been making here with y'all, if you look closely, just this morning when I pulled this one out, you see we've got a little spot right here that had a slight crack to it. That I lost a little bit, and then this one right here as well. So my Dorodango is going to be a little bit pitted when it comes out to be finished. And there are times where you just run into problems and you have to make a whole new one. That's kind of part of the process and learning and experimenting with it. So what we've got here is kind of the step to take it from kind of what is starting to form a ball and looks kind of shiny into this final polished state. And all we're going to do with that is polish it using a rag of some kind. Now, what I'm using here, the thing with the rag is we want it to not absorb water, not absorb moisture. So the recommendations I've seen have been to use pantyhose or silk. And so we're going to use this old silk pocket square in order to shine our Dorodango. So we're just going to rotate it around like this. And over time, you're going to pick up the fine particles that haven't adhered, and you'll leave behind the fine particles that have. And over time, you will eventually work it into a shine. You can see I'm getting a little bit of light reflection in here. And as I work it more, that will shine up. And as it shines up, eventually we will hit the same level of reflectivity as that. So this is the simplest process. All you have to do is hold it and just rub it and kind of move it and work it. And you can do this while you're watching television or doing anything else. And over time, you will eventually end up with a shiny, completed Dorodango. I've just been sitting polishing this Dorodango for about the last hour and a half. And now we've gotten it to a nice, pretty even shine. Over time, it will dull a little bit, but create kind of this shine right here. So this is our completed Dorodango. What's interesting about a Dorodango is it really tells a story of the process of making it and what you made it out of. The color and that kind of thing is all derived from the earth that you made it, but then you can also see nicks and scratches and bumps that kind of tell of the process of making it. This one is a little bit less even than this one because I didn't spend as much time rolling it. So for the next time, I'd want to roll it a little bit more. There's a spot or two where I've scuffed it and broken it in a spot or two. So it tells a story, and that's kind of the other thing to emphasize is that Dorodango is an art, not a science. So if your first one fails or you don't get exactly what you're looking for, try a different dirt. Try letting it sit longer. Try polishing it more. Trying to add more layers. It's an art, and everything kind of comes together in something different. That's kind of the last little bit I have for Dorodango is to remember that this isn't something that's going to come out perfect. It's going to come out unique. And that's what makes it so cool. And that's what makes it really an amazing art form. So thank you for joining us in this Dorodango digital workshop. I hope you learned a little bit and have fun playing in the mud.